Texas A&M might be suffering their first big blow on the recruiting trail. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Aggies.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are Locked On the Texas A&M Aggies. My name is Matt Galatzan, and I'll be your host. I am the publisher of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every day. Joining me today is one of my hardworking writers over there at Texas A&M Aggies on SI, DJ Burton. DJ, we got a lot to talk about today. Not a lot of time to do it, so let's hop into it. Big recruiting week for Texas A&M this week. A couple of big-time prospects making their decisions. We've seen Texas A&M over the last, let's say month and a half or so since late May, early June. They've really been on a run on the recruiting trail, shot themselves up the rankings, just recently landing 5-star Bryce Perry-Wright and just recently landing linebacker Tank King. They're in the running for a couple of other guys as well coming up, namely Lamar Brown, the number one athlete in the 2026 class. He is a two-way player, plays offensive line and defensive line. You typically don't hear about athletes in recruiting rankings who play those two positions. So it's a pretty interesting race there. Incredibly intriguing prospect. He comes out of University Lab in Louisiana, and Texas A&M has been battling, I believe, LSU, Miami, and Texas for his signature. They've shot themselves up to the forefront of that race. And it seems like they're in a competition right now with LSU. And over the last couple weeks, we haven't really seen Texas A&M lose too many of these battles. Unfortunately, it looks like we could see them lose their first big-time battle so far this summer. Projected by Rivals.com's Sam Spiegelman and Steve Wiltfong, Lamar Brown is now predicted to land with the LSU Tigers. DJ, how big of a blow would this be to the class, and what would it mean going forward?
I mean, Texas. If you're a Texas A&M fan, if you have those two projecting him to go to LSU, you're not really in too good of a spot. But I think it'll be a huge blow to the five, or at least 5-star standing. I mean, they've obviously built a pretty impressive class, but anytime you can have it shot at landing a 5-star and he goes a different way, especially after teasing A&M fans the way Brown has on social media, tagging other recruits saying, "Oh, let's run the SEC together," all that kind of stuff. It's a blow no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately for the Aggies, it seems like they're in pretty good shape in terms of defensive tackle depth going forward. Lamar Brown wants to play defense at the college level, I believe, so that's where he would end up. A&M has had a great run on defensive tackles over the last couple of years. They've got a lot of depth there. So if they miss out on Lamar Brown, I don't think it's the end of the world. That I don't think that they're going to go reach for somebody else, another prospect somewhere else in the country that to replace that loss. I just think that they'll kind of eat it and move forward and continue their quest for the number one class. But Lamar Brown isn't the only one who could spurn the Aggies this week. We also have 4-star edge rusher KJ Ford out of IMG Academy in Florida. He's the number 346 player in the country. Number 25. Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong guy. That was DQ Forkpa out of IMG Academy. KJ Ford, though, 4-star edge rusher out of Duncanville, Texas. Number 116 player in the country, number 18 edge. His finalists are Florida, Ohio State, and Texas A&M, and he is set to choose on Friday between those three schools. Unfortunately, DJ, again, this is a situation where it seems like the Aggies are going to be on the outside looking in, according to Spiegelman and Adam Gorney over there at Rivals. KJ Ford is predicted to pick the Gators. So this is a little bit different of a situation than the Lamar Brown thing. Texas A&M already has a ton of edge rushers and high-rated edge rushers in their class. Tristan Givens is a 5-star, just to name one. How would you feel about KJ Ford if the Aggies miss out on that? Are you pretty comfortable with where the Aggies sit right now?
Yeah, definitely, especially with the big names that they have at edge. They already have a ton of guys that have superstar potential coming in. But it just hurts anytime you have a Texas guy that goes to a Texas high school that's been, a powerhouse in the state, and you just can't keep him in Texas. It's going to hurt anytime, but that one feels a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they already have an embarrassment of riches over there in that 2026 class. We talked about Tristan Givens. We talked about, a couple of these other guys in there. Brandon Arrington, 5-star defensive back. Running back KJ Edwards, 4-star. We talked about Bryce Perry Wright already, 5-star edge rusher there. So 2 5-star edge rushers in the class already. Then you also have 4-star Jordan Carter. You also have Samu Maola at edge there, and another 4-star edge. So a lot of guys in there that are already in a good position to give the Aggies some edge rushers going forward. And I think that if they miss out on KJ Ford, they're probably likely to stand pat outside of one more 5-star that they're chasing in Anthony Jones. So that's going to kind of calm down. But just based on the amount of sheer talent they've added in this class so far, DJ, you made a great point to me this morning, so we're going to talk about it here. It could result in some other players not looking the Aggies' way anymore. Tell us what you feel about that.
Yeah, so the Aggies are in such a spot to where they've had so much success, especially with like their linebacker room, their receiver room, that at this point, if you're not a 5-star guy or a top talent, you might start looking the other way. Because at the end of the day, like the linebackers have Tristan Givens, who's an edge, but he could honestly play inside or outside linebacker. They have DeQuivis Beck. They have Storm Miller. They have Tank King. I mean, those are all guys that are gonna be playing at some point. And if you don't think you can go in and compete against them, you may as well look the other way, go to a different school where they may not have those caliber guys recruited already. That way you can go in and make a name for yourself somewhere else. I think that's probably what the case was with Malik Morris, who just committed to when you look at A&M's room, you say, okay, I'm going to have to beat out, 5 guys there. Whereas at Florida, I'm not sure how many linebackers they brought in, but if it's less than that, it's okay, maybe I just have to beat 1 or 2.
Yeah, right. And, I don't have Florida's numbers in front of me either at the moment, but, they have been on an absolute tear on the recruiting trail themselves. So it's also not much of a surprise that a guy like Morris or KJ Ford would want to land there, because they've just been cleaning up over there in Gainesville, and I expect them to kind of continue to rise up the rankings alongside the Aggies, who I think are in a pretty good position. Are there any other positions where you think that you feel this might be an issue as well?
Yeah, I was thinking it's an issue at receiver too. I mean, the Aggies already have Aaron Gregory, Madden Williams, Mike Brown. The rumor mill has been turning about Tristan Keys potentially flipping, and then Jace Matthews also has yet to make his decision. But I was thinking it could have been the same kind of situation with Booby Feaster and Caden Finley going to USC and Notre Dame.
Yeah, Booby Feaster was a big loss. Close to a 5-star wide receiver there. I don't know if he actually has the 5-star ranking, but he's right on the edge there. Caden Finley, another one. It was down to Texas A&M and Notre Dame, and I believe there was one more, but he ended up going with the Fighting Irish there. So a lot happening at the wide receiver position for Texas A&M as well. Madden Williams, I expect to be a very big part of what they're doing going forward. Gregory as well, and Mike Brown's a heck of a player too. We'll see what they do with Tristan Keys. We'll see what they do with Jace Matthews. Tristan Keys is talking a lot about the Aggies, though, so that could be a sign going forward. He is another LSU commit that the Aggies are trying to really get their hands on there. So we'll see what happens with these SEC rivals going head to head over the next couple of weeks for a lot of these recruits. But these SEC rivals are also going to be in Atlanta next week, DJ, for SEC Media Days, and we have some questions for Texas A&M and for Mike Elko. We're going to talk about that next. Today's episode of Locked On Aggies is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're about baseball, under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the fourth quarter, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, DJ, we are back, and we are talking SEC Media Days. Next week, the conference and all of the teams are heading to Atlanta, where we will have 4 days of coaches filibustering about their teams and how great they are and how they're complaining about NIL and revenue sharing and all the transfer portal and all the big talking points that we'll continue to hear about. Texas A&M is going, I believe, on the final day, which is July 17th. So they'll have plenty of time to kind of take in and absorb what the rest of the head coaches and players are saying. Armaj Reed Adams, Torian York, and Will Lee III are going to be in Atlanta with Mike Elko answering questions. That's three very good representatives to bring along with you if you're Mike Elko. A little bit surprised Marcel Reed's not part of it, but that time will come. He's just a redshirt sophomore, so he'll be in the action before too long there. I'm gonna give you my question after I ask you. I'm gonna go second here, DJ. What is your thing that you want to ask Mike Elko the most, or a player the most? What is your biggest question for the Aggies heading into SEC Media Days?
I think the biggest thing I want to ask him is, last year everything was relying on the run. It was on the back of Moss and that offensive line, and you kind of relied on Marcel Reed's legs more than his arm. And this year, I wanted to know what steps Reed has taken and what Coach Elko has seen just through spring ball and offseason workouts and everything. How has Reed improved as a passer? Is he feeling more comfortable slinging the rock, or is he still going to on his legs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very legitimate question to ask. There were times last year when Marcel Reed was just throwing it on a rope and really hitting his guys, right where he needed to, and he was very accurate. And there were other times where, the accuracy wasn't necessarily there, and the inconsistencies kind of started to creep forward. There was a couple examples of it. Like, he played excellent against Auburn at Auburn, and the defense just couldn't hold up in that game. And then against Texas, he kind of disappeared and got. I felt very rattled in that game. I mean, Texas had arguably the best defense in college football. They were getting after him all night. They were hitting him all night. So that obviously plays a role there, and that's a bit of an outlier because that's a really good defense. But there are other games in there where he struggled as well. They brought him in against LSU. He only threw 2 passes in that game, but he was still able to lead them back from behind and get a big win for them there. So he can do it without his arm. You'd like it to be the complete package, though.
Yes.
So I totally understand that, and I have a feeling that that's going to get asked pretty early on in the conversation. For me, my biggest question is, how does this team stop the run this year? Last year, that was a big issue. There was multiple games where they had a very hard time stopping the run. And I think it cost them a lot in November when they dropped 4 out of their last 5 games. And we won't really count the bowl game against USC. I don't bowl games, if you're not in the college football playoff, are kind of a wash to me. It's too many outlying factors there that can influence the outcomes of those games. But 3 of their last 4 regular season games they lost, and they really, really struggled to stop the run in those games. They struggled to stop the run against Notre Dame. And if you're going to compete in the SEC with, against teams like Texas and Georgia and, not so much LSU because they throw the football 350,000 times a game, but, some of these other teams on your schedule, Auburn, you got to stop the run. Oklahoma just got Jaden Ott. And, there's more running backs coming into this. I mean, A&M's not playing Oklahoma this year, but there's more and more good running backs coming into the conversation in the SEC every single year. So if you can't get that kind of wrapped up and tightened down up there in the middle, then you're gonna continue to struggle in the SEC. So, my question to Mike Elko is, how are we going to fix this? Who have you brought in? Who's stepped up? Who's developed? Who's kind of turning the corner and is it a defensive tackle? Is it a linebacker who's gotten bigger and stronger and faster, who understands his assignment more? I mean, Torian York can't do it all on his own, right? So that would be my biggest question for Mike Elko. In terms of players, DJ, is there anything that, Torian York or Armaj Reed Adams or Willie the third, one of those guys that you would have a question for, and what would it be?
My question would be for Willie the third. I mean, towards that back half of the season, once, like you said, November, when A&M lost 4 or 5 games, the pass defense, which had been somewhat of a strength leading up to that point, just completely fell off a cliff. My question would be, like, what has the defensive back room done over this offseason? Or has there been a scheme change or something like that has helped to kind of prevent what happened at the end of the year from happening again this year?
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly rational assumption or a perfectly rational question to throw out there, because if you can't stop the run or you struggle to stop the run, you got to stop the pass. And that's kind of what they hung their hat on last year. Like Des Ricks was very good at times. When Tyreek Chappell went down, I think that's really where things kind of took a turn and made things a little bit more inconsistent back there. But you got Bryce Anderson. You got a lot of talent back there. You just brought in the super fast Georgia kid whose name's escaping me right now, Julian Humphrey.
Yeah.
You brought Julian Humphrey in. You get Willie the third back. You got some pretty good pass rushers that are going to help those guys out. So, it should be a strength again. We'll hope that it returns to its level of effectiveness there, and Willie the third is going to be the start of that. For me, for a player, I got to ask Torian York if he feels the same about Texas this year as he did heading into last year. And what I mean by that is, last year at SEC Media Days, he dropped a fairly viral quote about Texas and how they didn't recruit him. And, so he had a little bit extra in his tank, and he was really looking forward to that game. And he kind of wanted to, I'm paraphrasing, but he kind of wanted to prove to them that they made a mistake. And that's kind of the narrative that he was trying to spin there. And unfortunately for Torian, it didn't go their way against Texas this past year. Texas won 17-7. That game felt like it was a lot more of a difference than 17-7, just based on the way Texas dominated in the trenches and really kept A&M's offense at bay. And my question for Torian York is, what do you guys have to change this year to compete with Texas, who's coming into the season ranked as the number 1 team in the country? Most likely they're at least going to be in the top 2 or 3. A lot of people are projecting them as a national title contender. They're projecting their quarterback Arch Manning as a Heisman contender, saying they have the best defense in the country and all these different things and yada, yada, yada about Texas. How do you feel about that, Torian? Tell me. Give me more Texas quotes that I can put on my site that are going to go viral and make us some money. How is he going to help this defense adjust to, the pressures of dealing with another school like Texas in the state who's kind of outshined you over the last couple of years. How do you rebound from that? Those kinds of things. I think he'll have an interesting perspective on that because he's always got a very interesting perspective on the rivalries and the in-state stuff with Texas and all that. So a lot to look forward to. SEC Media Days will be coming to you live from there next week. As a matter of fact, I will be in attendance. It should be an exciting time. But speaking of Torrey, New York, and the Texas and Texas A&M rivalry, the Lone Star Showdown, The Athletic recently released a ranking of the top 100 rivalries in college football, DJ. And I kind of hate where Texas and Texas A&M ended up on this. So we'll talk about that next year on Locked On Aggies. All right, DJ. It's time to filibuster about our rivalry here. The Athletic recently released their list of the top 100 rivalries in college football. For the most part, I think that they did a decent job of, at least on the top here. We're not going to sit here and break down the entire top 100 because that would take 37 years to do. And I'll read you off here's what we'll do. I'll read you off the top, starting from the top at number 1, and then we'll see how long it takes until we get to Texas A&M. And then we'll give our opinion on where we think that rivalry should sit on this list. Okay? So at number 1, we have Michigan and Ohio State. No surprise there. They've played more than almost any other rivalry in the country. 120 meetings. Only Army and Navy, I think, has more. Minnesota, Wisconsin has more as well. But outside of that, there aren't many teams. Auburn, Georgia has more as well. But there's a handful of teams who have met more than Michigan, Ohio State, and there are rarely games in that series, especially these days, that don't have an effect on the national championship and the Big Ten championship race one way or the other. These two teams hate each other more than any other two teams in the country, I feel like, except for maybe Texas and Texas A&M. That's the only other ones I can think of. It is a toxic rivalry. It is it's mean. It's always exciting. Good rivalry. Absolutely should probably be number 1. Number 2, Auburn, Alabama. Same things I said about Michigan, Ohio State. Excellent rivalry. People have actually shot their relatives over this game, so it is a top 2 rivalry. People have killed each other over this game, which is absolutely insane to think about. Always exciting too. We've seen the kick 6. We've seen just last year, or I guess it was 2 years ago, Isaiah Bond catching that pass from Jalen Milroe in the corner of the end zone on 4th down. Excellent rivalry. Oklahoma and Texas comes in at number 3. Hard to argue against it. The Cotton Bowl atmosphere, the neutral site, the divided stadium, always as well. This game has a major hand in who wins a conference and who plays for a national championship. Typically, the winner of this game, historically, the winner of this game usually goes on to play in their conference championship game, especially over the last 20 years or so. So that's absolutely deserving to be up there. Army Navy at number 4. Don't need to say much about that one. Just a historically awesome rivalry. Here's my first real issue on this list.
Yep.
At number 5, they have USC and Notre Dame, which I get. Historic rivalry, overrated, absolutely yes. Overrated. The last good game that I remember watching in this rivalry was the Reggie Bush, tush push from Matt Leinart back in 2005, I believe it was. So I feel like that one's probably a little high. Nebraska, Oklahoma, these two teams haven't played since They come in at number 6. These two teams haven't played since 2022. They're not going to play again until 2029. Why the hell is this on the list? I get the historic stuff behind it, but whatever. Miami, Florida State at number 7. Ohio State, Penn State. I don't even really consider that a rivalry. They just play every year in the Big Ten. That comes in at number 8. Florida State at number 9. Minnesota, Wisconsin at number 10. Two largely irrelevant programs there in the top 10. Alabama, Tennessee at number 11. Georgia, Florida at number 12. That probably deserves to be a little bit higher. That's a hell of an atmosphere there. Alabama, LSU at number 13. USC, UCLA at number 14. And we finally get to Texas and Texas A&M all the way down at number 15 on this list. One of the best rivalries in all of college football is getting a little bit of a backhand there from the Athletic. It I understand their reasoning kind of behind it. Maybe I understand. Actually, you know what, DJ? I don't. I'm reading through this, and I was expecting to hear something about how they haven't played in a while. But there's nothing in that about that.
No, it literally talks about how they played in 3 different conferences. Like, the rivalry has lasted over 3 different conferences. Both teams' fight songs are about each other. I just don't understand how it's so high on this list.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the where is the all-time series record?
It's 77, 37, and 5. So it's a little lopsided. It's pretty lopsided. Yeah. But
so, I mean, I guess that could be your only real argument as to why. I mean, if you want to bring up the stuff where they haven't played since they've only played once since 2011, fine. But then don't put, Nebraska and Oklahoma all the way up at number 6 when they're going to go a decade without playing each other. But if you want to talk about lopsided, I mean, we can get into that conversation, and that's totally fine. It's not the only lopsided rivalry in college football. There's a 40-game difference there, and that's a lot. But, USC...
The thing about it, too, is that a lot of it comes from, like when the rivalry first started. Like, Texas won 15 of the first 17 meetings, and that was back in 1900. Like, that was pre-World War I. So
yeah, and Texas has gone on big runs in this rivalry early on, and that's like since I don't have the numbers in front of me or the actual list in front of me, but there's a certain point in history where it kind of changes, and it's been a lot more even over that period of time. I don't know exactly what time period
from
that is.
The 80s on. And then again, Texas got dominated again in the early 2000s. But
that's just how rivalries go.
Exactly.
Like, teams go on runs at different points. Texas and Oklahoma is an example. Typically what happens in that rivalry is one team wins 3 or 4 years in a row, then the next team wins 3 or 4 years in a row. It's just been over the last couple years where we've had kind of a switch of back and forth. But, you talk about lopsided. Alabama leads LSU by 30 games. Alabama leads Tennessee by 21 games. I'm bad at math. Ohio State and Penn State have only played 40 times. Why are they in this conversation at all?
Yeah.
Texas leads Oklahoma by 13 games. Alabama leads Auburn by 14 games. Like, there's double-digit differences in all of these rivalries. I totally understand. Like, 40 is a lot. But if you go back and you look at, starting in the 70s or 80s or whenever it was, and you see how even the rivalry has been since then for the most part, Texas still has the edge. It's kind of asinine to me to put it that low for that fact either. And then if you just want to talk about sheer hatred, I mean, just go look at the TexAgs message boards if you want to see how much Aggie fans hate the Longhorns.
It's brutal over there, man.
And it's not mutually exclusive to TexAgs either. Go look at some of the other Texas message boards. There's always an Aggie thread about how much they hate Texas A&M, and there's always these Aggie jokes and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes both ways. The mutual hatred is there. I was in College Station for the Texas game last year, and it was the most electric atmosphere I had seen in a very long time, at least 10 years of going to college football games in the last decade. I haven't seen anything like that in quite some time. There's excitement around it. Everything. This rivalry has everything going for it. Their first time playing in a decade, the winner was going to the SEC championship. So there's a lot going on there. I don't understand why they put him that low, DJ.
I don't either. Another thing I was kind of surprised about was Texas A&M Arkansas was completely left off the top 100. I thought that would have been on there.
I feel like that's become a better rivalry over the last few years. I can't imagine why you would leave that off. I'm trying to see if Texas.
It feels like it's always.
Is Texas LSU Texas A&M is on there at number 71.
Yep.
I kind of feel like the Arkansas game is better than that one, but maybe I'm just being a little biased. Baylor Texas A&M is at number 74. I feel like we're kind of just digging into the bottom of the bag here for rival. I didn't come on to the Texas A&M beat until 2021. Mm-hmm. And, they had already stopped playing Baylor at that point for the most part. I don't know if they played them since 2021. I can't recall off the top of my head, but the rivalry had pretty much ended at that point. You're playing Arkansas every year now, and you're playing them in neutral site. There's a trophy. That's more of a rivalry than the Baylor game to me. But I digress. I hope that they develop another rivalry somewhere else in here. I'd like the LSU rivalry to kind of continue to take a step forward. But put the Arkansas in the top 100. That's better than a rivalry that doesn't exist anymore.
Like the LSU rivalry feels forced. Like
it does.
It feels like people are just telling Texas A&M and LSU that you have to hate each other, and the feeling just really isn't there.
Yeah, it just sheerly on the time of year that they put that game for so long, it was decided, this is going to be a rivalry, and I never really felt it. I don't think Aggie fans felt it. I don't think LSU fans cared either. No. But LSU fans are kind of weird anyway. They feel like their biggest rivalry is Alabama. Alabama doesn't really care about them. So just accept that LSU, your biggest rivalry is Ole Miss. However you want to feel about that, you can feel about that. But that's going to do it for another episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, please check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings across college football. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And there will be plenty more news coming on tomorrow's show. And who knows? There's always some exciting news happening in Aggie land. Fortunately, we'll have you covered right here on Locked On Aggies. DJ, why don't you tell them where they can find you on social media?
On X, I am at DJ Burton.
Perfect. And don't forget to go like the video, subscribe to our channel, give me a follow over on Texas A&M Aggies on SI. We cover everything from football, basketball, baseball, softball, anything in between concerning your Aggies and the latest news and notes there. And follow me on X at Matt Galatzan, and we will see you next time.